We are back on Morning Line. Thanks for joining us. Dr. John Overholt is with us. He is an allergist. He's on this morning. You see, allergy season, look, spring is not the only allergy season. If you ask him, allergy season, even though I think it's really spiked to some degree this fall for many of us, is year-round. It just is. And, you know, we can take your phone calls if you want to jump in, just odd questions that you may have, like the one I'm about to present him with. You talk about me being a beekeeper, and I'm just curious, in terms of the human body and reactions to things that make you allergic to something, and how long it lasts or why it occurs. I had happened to be in a period of my life 3 or 4 years ago where there was a 2 or 3 day period where I was just under a lot of stress, and I was working with the bees, and I got stung 3 times, which is commonplace. Prior to that, I'd been stung on a given day 15, 16 times. It didn't bother me at all. In fact, I was getting used to it, kind of liked it, which is weird. But just 3 times, and like anything, I kind of ignored it, finished up my work, went in, and then it was about an hour and a half later, I was sitting in a restaurant, and all of a sudden, I could feel a tingling on my neck. I go, what the heck? And then all of a sudden, I felt my lips start plumping. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going into an anaphylactic shock. I mean, at least I noticed that. Yeah. And I've got probably, you know, a matter of time before my throat swells shut and I die. So, you know, I popped 2 Benadryl real quick, and we left the restaurant and ran to the emergency room. Let me tell you this, go into an emergency room, it can be crowded, and you go up front and you say, you know, my husband here got stung by a bee and is swelling up. You don't wait.
Yeah, they're going to move you right on back there.
They take you back right away and hooked me up to epinephrine or something like that, and it was fine. But it's funny, since then, I've been stung several times and no reaction. And I'm just wondering, in your experience, can stressors in your life or things like that make you allergic to something in a short period of time? I mean, I definitely had an allergic reaction. And the only thing I can think was my immune system was down to some degree because I had been under such stress, not getting a lot of sleep, a lot of worry. And then I got nailed and my body had that reaction. What do you think?
Stress makes everything worse.
Okay.
If you've got allergies, you got migraines, you've got stomach problems, you've got arthritis, stress is going to make that worse. It just makes the body function more poorly.
But it's almost like it made, because I've heard stories of people who have split personalities. I mean, truly split personalities in their head, and they'll be, you know, you hear about this. You remember the famous movie Sybil, who had like 16 or 18, but I mean, split personalities where they're one personality, and they can have orange juice with their meal at breakfast. And then they switch to another personality and they drink the orange juice and they break out in hives. I'm just talking about the power of the brain, perhaps.
Sure.
Are you familiar with any of those concepts?
Well, there are certainly, you know, there is a mind over matter to this. And sometimes people who have had, you know, who've been conditioned to have responses to these things when they've had bad experiences or something in the past, their brain will sort of recreate those symptoms in the body. And I see that commonly in people who've had bad experiences, bad outcomes, or anaphylaxis reactions that they associate with something that they might not necessarily be allergic to. Didn't cause the reaction, but was there when the reaction occurred. And whenever they get around that thing, they start to have the symptoms again.
Okay.
So it's a behavioral conditioning response, sort of like Pavlov's dog, if you know what that is.
But it doesn't surprise you that now I can get stung by a bee. I'm not under that type of stress anymore. That's really a very rare thing. And I don't have a reaction. So am I not allergic anymore? From
an immunologic perspective, that would be unusual. Bee venom allergy is actually the best studied of all allergies in terms of what sort of risk you have at having subsequent reactions.
And I heard the doctor initially told me this was your first one. Next time it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
That's what he told me. And so I was real careful. I had to get those dang EpiPens, which are not cheap, and lug them around everywhere with me. Now I still have them. They've kind of expired. I haven't bought new ones, but I've been stung probably at least a dozen times in the last 3 years since.
Sure.
I take a couple Benadryl and have had no reaction. I mean, I don't even think I needed the Benadryl, but I do it as a precaution. Nothing.
So the question then is,
why did I have that reaction initially?
Did you have the reaction because of the bee sting or just after the bee sting? Typically,
well, I was reacting to something, then I was allergic to something.
Yeah, typically people who have bee venom allergy, if they test positive and they've had a reaction, about a 50% chance of having anaphylaxis with each subsequent sting. So if you've been stung 3 or 4 times since then, you're really pushing the odds.
Do you think it could happen again to me?
If you truly are allergic to bees.
See, I don't think I am.
Yeah, your history suggests that you're not.
Yeah, I just had that one incident, and I've been stung before that, nothing, and then, well, whatever.
Because usually people, you know, the beekeepers, when they have and I have several beekeepers as patients, they have big problems when they have it. Getting stung frequently like that is almost like getting your own sort of allergy shots to bees. It really helps your body stay desensitized to those.
That's what I thought it would do.
Stung more frequently.
The doc said, my body finally just said, we've had it with getting stung, you're allergic to it now.
Enough's enough,
Let's take some more phone calls. Let's go to Maria. Hi, Maria.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question, but it is related more to food allergies. Would that be okay to ask?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I was wondering, I have never been, well, I was never allergic to anything up until about 5 years ago. I started developing some allergies to beans, bananas, and it seems like every year I have to add 1 or 2 more foods to that list. So now I'm allergic to quite a few items. I don't get swelled up. It's more like a sensation that my esophagus is closing up. It's very hard for me to swallow.
Ugh, that's scary.
I don't feel like I don't feel like I cannot breathe or anything like that. It's more like my esophagus mainly. And I was wondering if there's anything that I can do, because obviously I don't want to keep adding items to that list. It started with 2 and now I have like 10, and it seems to be getting worse.
Sure. Have you been allergy tested before?
I have, yes, I have had. And there's things, for example, the allergy test showed that I'm allergic to peanuts, but I can eat those and I'm fine.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example.
Did you have blood tests done?
No blood test.
So there was
just the skin test.
Just the skin test. Okay. Food allergies are tricky because the testing often gives false positive results. And so it can be very, very difficult to distinguish sometimes between what's a true food allergy or what's just a positive test. And so it really has to flow from the history. You really have to get a good sense of every time I do this, I have a problem. And when I don't do this, I don't have a problem. So every time I eat shrimp, my lip swells up.
Right, so I was going to say, shrimp is a real common thing. I've had reactions to shrimp.
And when I don't eat shrimp, it doesn't happen.
But why? What's going on with her body that she's all of a sudden developing what appears to be allergies to foods she never had a problem with?
That's a very complex answer right there, and probably there's not going to be an easy sort of over-the-phone answer, but it has to be sort of in consultation with a good board-certified allergist in the office to discuss what's a true food allergy and what might just be a positive test. It takes a long time of sitting down with the patient.
But she's having the symptoms. So could she have that symptom and it not be an allergy?
So what we see frequently is that people have the symptoms.
Okay.
And they'll come in and someone will do a battery of food tests on them or blood tests, and you'll come up with multiple positive things. But like she said, I eat peanuts, I don't have problems, right? And so that tells you that there's definitely some false positives probably going in.
But she's allergic. So what are you saying, though, that obviously because of the symptoms, she's allergic to something. You just haven't figured out what it is. But she's apparently developing some kinds of allergies to something out of the blue now.
It's vanishingly rare for adults to have more than a couple or 3 food allergies.
Okay.
And so the more positive tests you get, the less likely any individual one is really causing the problem. So my suspicion would be is that a lot of those positive tests are actually false positives, but unless you sit down and have a good long in-depth conversation with the patient about exactly the timing of the reactions and the type of reactions that you're having, it's impossible to tell over
So what you're saying is the condition she's having that she feels after eating some of these foods could be caused by something other than an allergy?
Well, first, again, this gets really, really complicated.
I know. See, that's where I'm confused because she's obviously having a reaction, so I'm guessing she's allergic to something. I understand you're saying there's false positives.
Sure.
Okay, fine.
Most food allergies the hallmark for food allergy is still skin symptoms. So most folks have hives with that. Lip swelling, tongue swelling. The isolated difficulty swallowing, which can be esophageal or can be sort of upper airway problems too, is unusual for foods. There also could be what we call eosinophilic esophagitis. That's a mouthful. Which is a disorder where people get local reactions to foods in the esophagus but don't get systemic reactions to those foods, and it typically leads to symptoms of constriction, food impaction, food getting hung up so you can't swallow it. So that would be a possibility as well.
Is it true, by the way, as you said, it's rare for adults to have a large amount, and hopefully that's true for her. Do some children who have a lot of allergies then, as they get older, can they outgrow an allergy?
Yes,
you hear that?
Absolutely.
What is it? They mature, their bodies get more accustomed to it, or they get immune to it?
For food allergies, certain things, kids outgrowing the allergy is the rule rather than the exception. So milk, eggs, those sorts of things, most kids outgrow those allergies. Peanut, less likely, in fact, unlikely to outgrow peanut allergy.
Yeah.
Tree nuts, about a third of kids with tree nut allergies, so cashews, almonds, that sort of thing, will outgrow those allergies.
And what is it again, if you would, and this may be a long answer, but I mean, just in terms of what is it that led to this peanut epidemic of allergies among children, which didn't seem to be the case when you and I were kids, but now there's so many. My son has several friends that, you know, when they come over, we got to put the planters up, you know, can't have them, you can't even breathe it. Where did that come from? Is that because they ate so much peanuts when they were young generations?
Like anything, it's got a lot of factors leading up to that. It probably has, this is just my theory.
Okay, yeah.
I think it probably has something to do with the way that peanuts are processed. When we've looked at other sort of coming allergy epidemics in the past, like latex allergy, it really just had to do with how the latex was handled. In cultures where they give kids peanuts at a very early age, you don't really see much peanut allergy. So in Israel, for example,
I see.
When the American Academy of Pediatrics came out with a recommendation to delay the administration or delay eating peanuts in very young children who are at high risk until the age of 4, that was that was the wrong move.
The wrong thing.
We should have been giving, there's a window when you're young where your immune system, everything it sees, it thinks this is normal. This is what I should be seeing.
Yeah.
And
you're setting the template there.
If you get out of that window later on and it sees something, it might say, whoa, this isn't supposed to be here.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to set up this reaction to get rid of this foreign invader that's potentially harmful, which of course peanuts aren't.
Yeah.
So the other part of the peanut epidemic, although there is an increase in peanut allergy, certainly, there's been a huge increase in peanut testing. And that's a problem because there's so many false positive peanut tests. One study in Britain where they looked at kids who had, and it was a very good study because they went back and actually gave the kids, they had an oral challenge in them to see who was really going to react.
Right.
And 80% of the kids who carried a diagnosis of peanut allergy were not peanut allergic.
You think there are
80%.
American families where there are parents that have had their children tested and have been told that they're allergic to peanuts, so they protect them from it? Because I can tell you, if I get tested, if my son gets tested for something that he's allergic to before we've had an encounter, I'm going to want him to try it, and I want to see him react to it.
Sure. And there are definitely people walking around thinking they have peanut
probably
allergy
aren't.
who don't.
It's interesting.
But the problem, especially in very, very young children, because they're not able to really verbalize very well with you, not able to communicate what's going on with them, you have to be very, very conservative with peanut allergy because the potential for fatal reactions exists.
It can be so bad.
It can be so bad that you really have to err on the side of caution in those kids. But there are actually newer tests that they have now, we call this component testing, that can help differentiate between what's a false positive test and what's a true positive test. So the testing's getting better. It's not there yet, but it's much better than it was even 5 years ago.
Gotcha. Let's take a call quickly from Michelle. Michelle, good morning.
Morning.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. How can we help you?
I've got two things. He's talking about the peanut allergies and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to certain preservatives. I could take a flu pneumonia shot, and per se, I'm sick for 6 weeks. And the doctor said, well, it's something in the preservative. There's certain foods I eat, and I have wound up in the hospital with anaphylactic. And second of all, I took the allergy shots as a kid, went through the testing. I was allergic to more stuff than not. Years later, because I was on Singular, they couldn't do the skin test. So they done the blood test. Well, it said I was allergic to nothing. I know better than that. Is there any other way of testing? Because I know I'm allergic to dog and cat dander and hair and stuff.
Sure. So Singular won't interfere with skin testing. You may have been on an antihistamine along with that, like a Zyrtec or Allegra.
And what's Singular again? It's it's an inhalant?
Singular is a pill that's sort of an allergy and asthma pill, and like antihistamines block histamine, Singular blocks these chemicals called leukotrienes.
Okay.
But you can test someone on Singular just fine.
All right.
Again, there may have been something else in the medical regimen that prevented that, or some folks, the skin's just not reactive.
Sure.
The blood test, if it's the right kind of blood test, have a very, very good negative predictive value. Their ability to rule out allergies is great.
Yeah.
Especially the newer tests, which are super sensitive. But if you're still concerned, about having allergies and the blood tests were negative, then you can certainly do some skin tests to see if they show any allergies as opposed to that. As far as the preservative allergy, that can be super tricky. Preservative allergy was a really hot topic in the 80s, and there were certain preservatives, especially ones that they used in salad bars, that they would spray on the lettuce to keep it green. They gave people wheezing and flushing and this sort of pseudo-anaphylactic reaction. But the preservatives themselves, when they gave them back to people in a blinded fashion, so they didn't know what they were taking, they really couldn't find one that people reacted to consistently. Flu shots. Really,
I was going to bring that up because everyone. Let's take a break on that and come back because right now, in fact, I just had a flu shot 2 days ago, and a lot of people getting it as we get to that's flu season now. Talk about that. Some people swear they're allergic to them or the preservatives, and we'll see if you've seen that and some other issues as well. I want to bring up, the gluten allergies. What do you think of that? We'll take a break and be back in our final segment. Take more of your calls right after this.